Right, okay, what I want to talk to you about today is how we release the club head. How do we do it? Okay, how does this get released through the ball? And that's what I want to cover in today's lesson. So come on, let's go do it. So what is release and why do we have to do it? All right, it's an important part of the golf swing, and at some point in the golf swing, because you've set the angle in your wrists here on the backswing, at some point in the downswing, those wrists have to uncock or release. Okay, they will straighten out. So at some point on the downswing, you've created all this lag, as they like to call it, and then at some point that will release. Okay, that energy that you've stored up here will release. It has to. All right. Otherwise, if you don't release it, and you get some of these people that drag the handle through impact, if I actually set that angle here, and these rotators that talk about you just rotate your body through and so on, and people take that too literally, and that's one of the dangers that we see on the internet and so on, is they take that advice too literally. And what I mean by that, if I was just to take that angle and hold it, and then I was just to turn through, okay, and keep the right elbow bent into my side. You hear people saying about, well, tuck that into your side. If I do that, my club face will never ever be square. I'll always start the ball to the right of the target, and if anything, it might go straight right, or it might actually curve off to the right hand side as well. There's also danger that I could shank it as well. Okay, so I have to, at some point, even though I'm getting good forward shaft lean that people talk about, I have to at some point release that club. All right, because you can see that's quite clearly pointing off way ahead of me. All right, that's square. What they would say to you then is, oh, then what you've got to try and do is then bow that left wrist, okay, and bow that left wrist to get into this position. That squares the face up. All right, but I've still not released all that energy through the shot. Okay, I still haven't released all that energy that I stored up through the shot, and I'm relying a lot heavily on body rotation. But body rotation just alone isn't enough to create club head speed. All right, I don't think I could do that. I'm going to give it a try, but I'm going to try and set the wrist and try and turn through. I can't create rotation, so okay, I can't. That would have gone nowhere, by the way. I can't. It's a lot of variables and a lot of difficulty for something that's actually quite simple. So we have to release the club. All right, the club head has to be, at some point, the hands will start to unhinge. Probably we get down to, if you want to call it, delivery position. At some point here, my left hip starts to push out the way. My hands will unhinge and straighten out. Okay, and that's what gets the club head to the ball. It's what helps me to square the blade up and get my full width in the swing. All right, also creates club head speed. All right, so that action there of the wrists uncocking creates club head speed. You can hear it. All right, I can hear that when I'm doing this. I can hear that whooshy noise. Whereas if I just did it with just my body, it's not as deep a whooshy noise as it is doing that like so. You can do that yourself. Try that out. So release. All right, so that's why we have to release. That's what release is really. It's a case of the wrist having to uncock. All right, and that's one of the things that confuses a lot of golfers when they're playing as well. All right, so it's very, very important that you learn to release the club head correctly. So I'm going to show you the two methods out there. I have my preferred method, and I think you'll guess which one it is. And it's then down to you to go and practice it and rehearse it until it becomes a natural movement for you. All right, but we're going to talk about the two types of releases that are out there, and yes, they're adopted by both tournament players, alike. And then I'm just going to give you some drills after that to then work on to try and improve your release. All right, so come on, I'm going to go and do this. Hope you're enjoying this video. Please remember to like and subscribe. It does help me out quite a lot. So there's two types of releases out there. Okay, there's one which we call a throw release. All right, where the right hand does a throw-in action. Okay, where if I was to throw a ball, say baseball style, my right wrist would work backwards and then forwards like so. And then there's a roll release, okay, where you're shaking hands with the target here, and then you're shaking hands with the target there. So your hand's having to roll over. All right, and that's the two types of release. You've got a release where the hands do this, or a hand does this. All right. So the throw release has become like more of a modern term used now, and probably more of a modern swing used by golf pros on the tour. Because what they found with the throw release was it minimises forearm rotation, which is what we really want. You know, when you see tour players on TV, they're talking about how they're trying to quiet the hands down. They're not necessarily trying to quiet the hands down. It's the wrong terminology. They're still using the hands, but they're trying to quiet the forearm rotation down. And that's through actually having the correct release. And this is my opinion. Yes, there'll be people out there saying, oh no, that's not what Rory does. You know, Rory has a lot of tournament players, you'll see the club face as they swing through, the club face is pointing down to the ground, and they're really sort of rolling the hands through to get this club head square. Now, I'm not going to stand there and deny that that isn't a speed producer. So the club head working this way does actually create a bit more club head speed. Small percentage though, I'm not being funny, it's only a tiny percent of club head speed. But it also, when you've got the club face doing this, so if I stand up this way and I do both movements, so hopefully you can see it with this orange alignment rod I've got in my glove. If I was to swing the club and do a throw release, okay, the right hand works back on itself and through, you can see how my club head or club face remains relatively square to the swing path. All right, so if I do that throw release, it remains square to the path. All right, if I do roll and roll, we used to get told to point your watch face down at the ground, or point your watch face or the back of your glove to the ground and things like that. That creates, you can see how the club head then goes from square, open, square to closed. All right, well, you've got to time that up, and if you don't have the ball in the right ball position, if you don't have the the swing path correct, or you don't quite time that release correct, you're going to roll it over too soon, or not soon enough, you're not going to create the club face square. All right, so for me personally, I prefer to do the throw release. Okay, it's a swing technique that's been adopted by a lot of teachers now, but this throw technique is a lot more accurate in my opinion. If I'm just throwing that down the fairway, it's a lot more accurate. So I don't know, if I was to throw a ball at the net, it would be far more accurate to throw it that way as opposed to trying to roll the wrists and get it to go all over the place. It's harder to time. So that's the two different types of release that we have out there now on the tour. Keeping the club head square to the swing path is what we're really looking for nowadays in the golf swing. And that all comes from the right hand working correctly. So the stick here on my glove, that is now pretty much square. The club face, you notice if it's slightly tilted down, the glove is now slightly, that angle here on my wrist is now also slightly tilted down, or it's in line with my spine. All right, but it's actually, more importantly, it's in line with my path. Okay, and that's really important. My glove, my right hand glove here, will stay relatively square to my path, and that's even on the follow through as well. So on the follow through, my hand, if I do the throw release correctly and do it like so, you can see how that still remains square to my path. So that action here, my club faces remain square. Okay, yes, at some point, around about here somewhere, this left arm will then rotate in its shoulder socket, and then the club head will cross over, but my back of my left hand still feels like it's facing towards me, and my right hand is facing towards, palm of my right hand is facing towards me. Okay, and that's the feeling that you want. It's just accurate. It just means the club face is more accurate when I'm swinging through. And all that happens is, if I do that throw in action, if I'm delayed in that action and I keep too much angle here, okay, and I come in to hit the ball, what will happen is, if I keep too much angle here, or I get plenty of shaft lean, but I keep that angle here, my club face is still square, but all I would do is I'll end up de-lofting the club. if I release that angle too soon or too early, okay, my club, the stick is still vertical to the ground, club face is still square, but what happens is I'll just add loft to the ball, so I can hit it higher, lower, or that's about normal for me here, okay, slight forward shaft lean, but I'm square, and that's how you can control height, is by controlling this throw action. So if I delay the throw and have the knuckles closer to my forearm, let's say, that will hit the ball lower. If I release it early, it's going to hit the ball higher. But if I hit it just about right and just release it, just time it just right, that's going to help me to keep the club face square, but I'll hit the ball of a medium height. So it's very, very important that you get that feeling of the right hand just throwing. It's like a throw, and that's what I want you to feel. So back and throw, okay? That's going to keep the ball a lot straighter to the target in the golf swing than it is with you trying to roll the wrist. So we see a lot of golfers, they tend to roll the wrist open and then they roll it on the way through, okay? And that's just going to cause you to hit it left. So back and through, you're just going to hit it left, or you're not going to time it right and you're going to hit it out to the right hand side because you don't quite get that release correctly through. So keeping the right hand working back and forth like so. I'm not going to say flexions and extensions, I think we're all beyond that, to be fair. But if I'm going to hinge my wrist back so I feel like it's going back on itself, again, yes, at some point it will rotate in my shoulder socket, and yes, but it's still square. All right, so I get a real feeling when I'm doing this is that the club face feels like it's really facing down to the ground when I take the club away, but at some point it will rotate in my shoulder socket and get on plane. All right, and it's a great feeling to have because I feel like I've got really good control on the ball, and it's just relying on me then just to make sure that I get the angle right with my wrist. Okay, so back and through. My ball will start relatively straight every single time. My face to path generally doesn't deviate much at all when I swing a golf club, which I'm quite happy with now. And that's down to what I've been working on for the last sort of 7 years of this throw release. So that's the two differences. You've got the roll release, okay, that's action, or you've got the throw release where you're throwing the ball down the fairway like a sidearm, as if you was skimming stones across the water. You'd have that action. That's how you want the wrist to work. And you notice here my forearms don't roll at all. Okay, I'm not crossing these bones over inside my forearm. Okay, I'm keeping it nice and neutral, and that's about what we call quietening the hands down. I'm not quietening the hands down. The hands still use and release, but I'm doing them at a point where they're not rolling, which is what we want. You wouldn't throw a ball. If I was throwing a ball, I wouldn't throw it by spinning my hand or doing this, okay? I wouldn't throw a ball and do that, okay? It just wouldn't work, okay? It'll put spin on the ball. Whereas if I was to throw it this way, okay, it'll be a lot straighter. And that's really what we're after, all right? And that's the sort of feeling that I want you to get, all right? Now I'm going to give you some drills to try and work on with this now. It'd be interesting to know how you get on. Also, it'll be interesting to see what the flippers say as well, all right? But I'm going to do a quick video on that now. Okay, so there will be some people out there that will comment or will say to you, oh, well, that's a flip. He's teaching you how to flip at the ball. You don't want to be flipping at the ball. You want to try and hold the wrists and hold the angles, okay? It's just exactly what I was saying at the beginning of the video. You've got to allow it to release. Golfers on the tour do it, okay? They do release the club, but they release it at the right point, all right? And it's not a flipping action because it generally happens after I've hit the ball. Then that's when it is. And it's all down to timing then. And unfortunately, there's no secrets. There's no quick fixes here, okay? You've got to go out there and actually work on it and train it to release at the right time. And there's no better way of doing it than this sort of action here, this practice session here of, first of all, you could probably stand there and get used to just throwing a ball, okay? Just get that feeling again. Just stand there and just throw some balls. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't help, it doesn't hurt to get that feeling of just feeling the arm go back and just throwing a ball into the net or up the range and so on, just to get that feeling. And then that feeling here, you can then try and translate down into the ball area, all right? But to address the release action, Okay, so it's quite complicated. There's a lot of things going on here, right? So the weight of the club, all right, when it swings back, as it gets to a point here, you've already set the wrist up because the momentum encourages the wrist to hinge. As you get into, I'm going to use the word top of the backswing, but as you're finishing the backswing area and you're starting to transition into the downswing, there's a thing called inertia, gravity, and momentum, all right? And they're going to cause the, I'll take my net out, but as I swing back here and I'm doing this action here, there's a thing called gravity and momentum. You can see the club actually has a slightly more of a wrist hinge, all right? And that's because inertia wants to go that way, okay, it's pulling the club away. Momentum wants to pull it behind me, okay, and gravity is making my arms come down. So I create this lag action by naturally, if I'm naturally relaxed, all right? And it'd be the same with a throw-in action. As I swing my arm back and I step forward, my wrist would have a slight rehinge, okay, and I come in here, and that's the inertia of the ball is pulling my weight. It wants to stay over there, but I'm going to try to drag it back this way, and then it will release, all right? Otherwise, I wouldn't throw a ball by not releasing, okay? It just wouldn't happen. I would throw the ball releasing the wrist, if that makes sense. But you've got to time when that is. And a great way to feel this is to set up to a ball. And you're not going to get this absolutely spot on, but it's just to get a ball and throw one ball at the ball on the ground or near abouts, all right? And you're just going to stand here and you're just going to swing your arm up over your shoulder, and you're just going to swing the arm down, and you're going to time the release of when that happens, all right? It might happen just after the ball, which is fine, because that's actually where we want it to be. But you would never release the club or release the hands and the throw so it throws over there, okay? And if I did it too soon, I probably would end up throwing it back on beyond myself, all right? So these casters or these flippers who tend to do it too early, they're mistiming the release. It comes down to a few other things that happen in this swing as well. The club face is wide open and so on, but that's another story. So I'm just going to throw here. I'm just going to practice throwing the ball at the ball on the ground. So just like so, okay, I actually hit it. So just going to practice just throwing that. I'm just going to time my release correctly. Once I've got to about here and I've released it here, then it carries on through, all right? And that's just a natural throwing action. It's something that you can already do. You don't have to be a highly skilled, highly trained professional, just get that one back, to be able to throw a ball, all right? And then you've got to try and just translate that into a golf swing, all right? So you don't have to go nuts. I can try and delay that throw and get a feel for that as if I was throwing the club head or throwing the club head at the ball. All right, so I'm just going to swing back and through. And I can practice that. I can practice as and when I'm going to throw the club head at the ball and get the timing right. It's all about getting timing. Okay, so your hands will release, you just got to time it right. What you don't want to do is do it too soon. Okay, so I'm just going to swing back. Just swing through, and I can time that release correctly, and this will stop you from doing that casting, as we say. So you see golfers over here, they release that throw too soon, and that's what they're going to tend to do and get a scoopy action. Ideally, you're going to hold that angle or hold that throw until you get down to here and then release it. But you've got to release it. It's very, very important. All right, so from the top of the swing, back and through. Okay, I'm releasing that at the right time. I've practiced it enough that I know when to do it. Okay, and I'm directing the throw, if that makes sense, or I'm directing the momentum of the club head. I'm directing it. I'm in total control. You can start off light though. You can start off small. You can just start off just small, just getting a feel for that. All right. And that's a great way to practice this and to get the feeling of when to release the club head. It's a great way of doing it. It's probably the easiest way to do it, and there's no need to give you any other drills to do really, other than get that feeling of when to throw it. So throwing a ball at another ball on the ground, and then just practice and rehearse that. You can practice when to release the club head. It's a great drill. It works every time. It's not complicated. You can already throw a ball. So it's really important that you learn to release the club head correctly. All right, so the way we release it is how the right hand works, is by allowing the right hand to hinge back and forth. Okay, my left hand works in this manner, okay, because of the way in which I hold the club, which is a strong grip. So the heel of my hand is approaching the ball to do the hit. I don't want the back of my left hand at the ball. And I'll do a video on the left hand maybe, and how the left arm works during the swing, but that's how the left hand works. I've done plenty of videos on grip, but the right hand works with that. With the fact that the face or the palm of your hand, which is going to take all the force of impact and so on, because that's what would happen if you fell over. You'd fall over, you'd brace for the impact that way. You wouldn't fall over with your wrist bowed. All right, it's a compromised joint. You'd fall over this way. All right, so the right hand's got to be behind the ball. That's what we call line of compression, behind the ball, but we also want it releasing in that manner. Okay, a throw motion. If you can release it in that throw motion, I promise you, you'll have more directional control of the ball than you've ever had before. You'll be surprised. So even if I do release the wrist too early, all that will happen is it'll go straight, but it'll just go higher. Okay, and I'll lose distance. Okay, and if I want to hit it lower, I just hold that angle back more. All right, so it's all about learning to time the throw. Do it slowly to start with, and then just time it correctly. Once you do that, I promise you, you will hit the ball with a lot more control and possibly a lot more power as well, because you're allowing the wrist to release. Don't do this hold off angle. Don't become a handle dragger, all right? Handle draggers never win, all right? It's a lot more. You have to add in so many variables to right hand lateral bend. I've got to get the hips to turn, bow my left wrist, and that's the way that I'm going to release the club head into the ball. Right arm's tucked into my side, and yeah, I create phenomenal dynamic loft. But it's very hard. I've done it, tried it, doesn't work for me. It's a lot more stressful on the joints doing that, especially as an older man like myself. It's a lot more stressful on the joints. So allow the club head to release, but treat it as a throw-in action. You've done it in plenty of other sports, so treat it as a throw action. Feel the right hand release. So throwing a ball at another ball on the ground, get the feeling for this release. You'll feel as though that on the follow-through, that you're trying to hit almost a high lob shot. Okay, it won't go high. You just got to get that timing correct. And through. Okay, love it. I love that swing. It just helped me out immensely when I learnt to do this, to actually be able to control the release and control the direction the club head was going in. Okay, pretty much every one of those starts down the middle of the net every time. All right, so anyway, hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll catch you at the next one. Okay, thank you for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe to the video, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. Okay, it's about how to release the club head. All right, how to release it is it's not a revolutionary thing. It's just simple as throwing a ball. Okay, and hopefully the drill that I showed you there helps you to do that. If you have any questions about it, please drop a comment below, or message me, or come and visit my new website called mattbakergolf.com. Be more than happy to help and answer any questions that you might have. Anyway, have a good week, and I'll catch you next week.